Hey, what's up, guys? This is Atlantis Refurbished, back again with another video, and what we're going to be talking about today is how the higher that you raise your frequency, the more, which in turn raises your vibration, the more negative people that you will begin to attract because you have healing energy that would raise them up, basically. So to start off, when you begin to raise your emotional state, frequency, and therefore vibration, you will notice that you feel a lot lighter and less affected or burdened by your past failures, traumas, and depressions. In short, you will begin to feel like a more complete and a more healed person overall. The reason this is important for the topic of this video is that everybody has an aura around them that extends several feet, sometimes more, depending on the strength of the person at that time in their life. Obviously, it goes up and down depending on what you're going through. This aura can affect and rub off on the people, animals, and environments it is brought into or brought around. And this can have either a positive or a negative purpose or effect. This is why when you are around someone who's like extremely negative or simply going through something that is causing them to feel sorrow, grief, anger, etc., they don't have to be like specifically a very negative person. They could just be going through something that's sort of making them down or negative. If you have like paid attention, it can be very draining to like even be around them. Like if they're talking about their problems, it's not that like it's bad to talk to them about their problems, but like, sorry, it's a big ass water. Basically, yeah, like when you're high frequency, if you're in a good mood, going and then being around someone that's going through something, obviously it's good to help them, but you do notice that it can suck whatever like good mood you were in away very quickly. It's a contagious energy. However, the same contagious energy can also be found in people who are at peace, in a joyous state, grateful, people that are like very grateful for what they have. Which I personally need to work on. Loving, like someone that's very loving. The list goes on. When you're around them, you feel brought up, right? So the energy is contagious in both directions. When you become more enlightened, and hence the term become filled with light, you raise your frequency much higher than it used to be. And because of that higher frequency aura, you will become a light source, a lighthouse. Like if you've noticed, a lot of churches are called like Lighthouse Church, or I've seen like a few. Or a beacon to people who are going through low frequency emotions, such as grief, sorrow, etc. Most of the time, the person is unconscious of why they want to be around you, that person that's going through something, more than somebody else. But it is actually because your aura has, through raising your frequency and becoming more enlightened, became a more healing energy or a more peaceful type energy. This is why, for example, unconditionally loving animals such as dogs help some people with depression, because for the most part, dogs aren't negative. They're like, you could not even be the best owner as long as you're not like straight up abusing them, right? And they're just gonna like look at you like, oh my gosh, you're home, or like just wait the whole time for you to get home. That unconditional love, the reason people like being around dogs, they love you for actually who you are. While a lot of the time, one, it's very rare to find a human that's unconditionally loving because there's so many labels and judging. And then two, it's just hard to unconditionally love in the first place. So like, yeah, basically the higher the reason people are so attracted to dogs, besides just them being like funny or playful, or like just as a pet, is because unconsciously or consciously you realize that they bring you up, or they can bring you up because they love you for who you are. It's very rare to find people that fully love people for who they are, and that's not necessarily anybody's fault. Just the way we grew up in society, there's so many labels, and you're a part of this political party, you're a part of this, you're part of this, and I don't agree with that, so I can't love you. Like there's so many different reasons supposedly to not like people, that it is very rare to find somebody who like it just loves you for who you are. The problem lies in the fact that when you like moving on, the problem lies in the fact that when you help too many people as that healer or higher energy frequency person and are around their negative or possibly selfish vibration and aura for too long, you get slimed or like affected by this energy, and then your personal shine that you had and good vibration becomes depleted, and sort of like in a vampiric or vampire type of way sucked from you into that other person. While it isn't, keep in mind, like while it isn't bad to help somebody who is feeling down, you should never neglect your own needs and be brought down by this as well. Because once you're brought down to too far of an energy to like work back up from it, like when you actually get fully angry and it's not just an annoyance, now you are in a state where you're not able to help more people, right? So like as a healer or somebody who like feels like they can help people with their emotions, keep in mind you shouldn't do it too often or too much. Otherwise you'll become drained to the point that you can't help anybody because you were affected by that aura by being around it too much, being around negativity too much. Luckily there are many methods and tools to reduce this negative effect, as well as pull the other person that's going through it out of depression and begin to raise their vibration, so that they don't need anybody else to talk to. They will just be in the state that you're in as a healing energy. So I want to go over some of those methods that you can use to mitigate the negative effects of helping other people on your emotions, and then also reference or offer these methods to those other people, so that they can just use those methods instead of other, like relying on therapy type settings or talking to somebody else. They can actually manage it just as well, or in my opinion better, because of how effective some of these are on their own, rather than like always needing to like vent their problems on other people or something along those lines. The first two that aren't necessarily going to help too much, but are like the base or can be a base for the other ones. The first one that's a requirement is meditation, in my opinion. Meditation gives you more control over your thoughts. A lot of the time what happens, in the person that is helping other negative people, is if they tell you too many things and then you attach yourself to one of those negative things or get angry by being around it. If you're not grounded and you don't have control over your thoughts, you could start to go down that negative spiral and think about more negative things. That's just going to annoy you even more. So you would preferably like to have more control over your thoughts, to give yourself the control to not let it go, like to not let the negativity affect you as much. The next thing I'm going to and then as well as the other person, if they learn how to control their thoughts, they will be able to pull themselves out of a negative state easier. It takes time to learn how to meditate better, but if you just do it every night, you'll eventually figure out how you work. There's no specific way to meditate because the way everybody thinks is completely unique. Obviously, there's like base methods like keeping your eyes closed, thinking. In my opinion, the most effective way is the methods that I'm about to talk about. So meditating alongside these methods is like way more effective than simply just sitting with your eyes closed like most people think meditating is, or trying not to think, which is not necessarily the case. What you're trying to do is not think about the things that are bad. You can still think about, you can still contemplate and think about things. It's not only about not thinking about things. That's just one form of meditation. The next thing I'm going to talk about is using high frequency crystals. So this one that I'm wearing right now is called Moldavite. It's for your upper chakras, your heart, etc. Those are more divine chakras or energy centers. Technically, they're all divine because God is everything, right? So, but what I'm trying to say is these are more emotions that deal with like higher knowledge or love. And in this case, having that higher knowledge or love will help to, or feeling love more often, will make it easier to come back from being around negativity rather than getting sucked into it too long and getting stuck there yourself. That was pretty much it for that. The next video that I'm going to recommend is, or a bunch of videos that I'm going to recommend are from 2 channels called Dream Seeds and Sapien Medicine. Sapien Medicine and Dream Seeds, they use frequencies or energy fields to manipulate your aura and make you feel a certain emotional way or clear out old emotions or put you in a certain mindset. So meditating alongside these for the purpose of that specific video will make it a lot easier to like stay emotionally grounded and get rid of negativity, as well as like past emotions that cause negativity in the first place. So the first video that I'm going to recommend is Sapien Medicine Automated Grounding, or Dream Seeds Automated Grounding. Dream Seeds Automated Grounding is going to ground you emotionally, so you have more control of your thoughts rather than being like, like when you're anxious or worried, it's really easy for your thoughts to spiral. That's because you're not planted in the ground, you're not calm, you're not grounded. So it's very easy to get drained from certain things because you're not in control. You know what I mean? Another aspect of that automated grounding video is that it will engorge you with like a state of unconditional love, or push your upper chakras and your heart chakra to open and feel unconditional love. So first off, you'll be emotionally grounded. Then you'll feel it'll push you to be in a state of unconditional love. So if you were just around, so going into helping that person use the video, so your frequency is already higher, therefore you have a higher ability to help them. Then afterward, if you felt like you got drained a little bit, you can go listen to it and it'll help raise you back up into that love state. You can also recommend all these videos to anybody that you know that is struggling emotionally with something. Because if they're in a negative state, it'll pull them into a love state and make it, obviously, love isn't negative. Love is the opposite of negativity or fear. So the more often that they feel that, the quicker and less likely they are to fall back into depression. The next thing I'll recommend is probably one of the most important videos, because it'll help all the other ones work better, is with our 7 chakras and our 7 energy systems. They become blocked by false emotions, illusions, grief, sorrow, worry, anger, like anything that's like not in harmony. So what the video is called is Dream Seeds Energy Blockage Removal. What this will do is wash over your chakras and get rid of old emotions. So if you've noticed at the end of like a long day of work, if you were like at like a 9 to 5, or like it doesn't matter what you're doing that's stressful, you feel like you can't express love as much, or like as you could in the morning, or you can't relax as much as you could in the morning because you're all like tight from how stressful that environment was, or something like that, or just tired in general. What this will do, and then like if you notice when you sleep it off and you wake up, you feel better in the morning, but then you go back and do that stressful thing, and then by nighttime you're like, even if you do like love your spouse or love like the people that you're coming home to, you're so, 1, exhausted, and 2, still like your heart's clogged just from being mad at like, or annoyed at doing what you were doing. If you don't like your job or whatever you're doing, obviously that's not the case for everybody. Sometimes what people are doing is what they love. But in the case that is not the case, this will help to, at the end of the day and the start of the day and the middle of the day, if you have time, lunch break or something like that, clear out your energy so it doesn't become as blocked. So how this will help with this specific video is, if you're going to help someone that's very negative, what can happen is, once again, you'll be in this really good mood, right? All your energy's flowing, you feel love or you feel joy or something like that. But then you go around, you stay around it for too long, and all you're hearing is problems. So you start to think about problems. You start to think about their problems, rather than your problems. It doesn't matter what it is, or specifically. But what that'll do is cause energy blockages. So in your heart, it was free flowing, right? Now you're thinking about darkness, or you're thinking about negativity. So you're going to start to feel your heart close off, make it a little harder to love. What you want to do after helping that person is clear out your energy so that it doesn't become too clogged. So if you don't use this method of energy clearing and you keep going around, it'll just keep closing it further until you start to become that person, right? Because you're hanging around it too much, or you're just around it too much. If you use that video on a daily basis, it'll help to stop that from happening. And if you offer it to the other person, it will help them to unblock that emotion that's making them act like that in the first place. The next video that I'll recommend is Dream Seeds Higher Self Connection. This will connect you with your higher self, obviously. What your higher self is like an omnipresent being that has been with you throughout everything that you've been through. It's really your soul. Your higher self exists further, like time doesn't exist, in my opinion. It's in this reality, we're viewing it as like a linear event, but like quantum physics and physics are already proving that time's like almost a circle, like that everything has already happened. It's just we're basically going through it and perceiving it right now. Your higher self already is like more advanced than you. It's further along. So by tapping into it, it can help you and guide you, sort of like God. It's basically your higher self is more connected to source because it's further along on its journey. It's like a future version of you. So by connecting with it, it will give you advice on how to like sort of manage your emotions, and it'll do a lot of things, but in the case of this video, it'll help you to manage your emotions and sort of like not waste your time on things that don't matter. So if this person's being negative and you're trying to help them, it'll help you. It will sort of remind you by tapping into it and being connected to it to not overly invest yourself emotionally, because you have to save it for helping yourself, would be an example. It would try to lead you along the highest possible path to reach where it's at, because you're trying to merge eventually. You're trying to become a better version of yourself. So your higher self will push you to be a better person because it's closer to God, or like further along that spiritual journey. What was I going to say? So yeah, so basically it'll tell you how to manage your emotions on a more efficient level so that you don't get pulled into the negativity as much. If you want to know more things that the higher self does, either research it yourself, use that higher self connection video. It's very strong. Just warning. It's not necessarily in a bad way, but the warning is just that you will all of a sudden get a ton of like spiritual, I would word it an epiphany. By using it, you will start to get a lot of epiphanies on certain things, or like how you view certain things will change. So if you don't necessarily want that change right now, don't use it. But if you want to learn more about the higher self, connect to it. And I also have another video out that goes over the higher self. So I'd recommend watching that. But for this video, it will just help guide you away from. It'll help you to help that person, but not overly invest yourself emotionally, basically. The next thing I'd recommend is very self-explanatory. It's just Dream Seeds Aura Cleanse. So your aura gets polluted by whatever it's around, or brought up by whatever it's around. If you're around someone that's really positive, it's going to raise the frequency of your aura. But what happens is with really negative people, they have a ton of blockages. So they're going to put those, by being around that aura too much, you're going to feel those blockages for yourself. Those are stuck in your aura, stuck in the energy around your body because you were too close to it. What that aura cleanse will do is just cleanse your aura. At the end of the day, you'll feel lighter, you'll feel more refreshed, sort of in a similar way to energy blockage removal and how it feels, but on a slightly different level. Then the next video I'm going to recommend is also pretty self-explanatory. It's called Dream Seeds Negativity Repel, or Repel Negative Energy 2.0. That will obviously work to repel negative energy and disconnect you from how it affects you emotionally. So if you're going to help them, or after you're done helping somebody, or somebody who's just like vampiric and likes to drain people in general, whether or not you're helping them or not, if you use that video afterward, you will notice yourself being put back into a positive state and notice that it's harder to get as negative. You still might feel it a little bit, obviously, but it'll reduce it like drastically. The next video that's pretty similar is Sapien Medicine Radiate Positivity. So it'll have sort of a similar effect to the negativity repel. It will just help you to stay out of negativity and be in a positive state. Then the next one is Sapien Medicine Grief, Sorrow, and Loneliness. That will help to relieve you from like the emotions that could be put onto you by that person talking about them. So a lot of the time, if you're already over something or almost over something, you don't necessarily want it to be brought up, right? Like if you're trying to be positive, you're not going to sit there and think about the past all day. But what this person is doing is thinking about their past. So it kind of can pull you into the state of thinking about your own problems. If that brings up those emotions for you, that will help relieve those emotions from your energy body. Next one that I'll recommend is Sapien Medicine Depression Relief. What that'll do is if it puts you in a negative enough state to where you feel like a lack of positivity or depression, it'll help you to bounce back from that. But especially for the other person, if you have people in your life that need emotional help, and it's draining for you and you've already tried to help them a lot, but not much is helping, I would recommend at least trying meditation alongside this depression relief video. So the frequency will raise your positivity or raise their positivity and hopefully bring them out of that state so that they don't have to keep getting therapy for it or keep talking about it. They can just use that video on like a continual basis and they just won't feel as bad. Which obviously is the goal of you helping them, right? The goal of you helping them is because you want them to feel better. And then another thing is that you don't want to feel bad from helping them. So that video will help both you and the other person. The last two that I'm going to recommend, the first one is Sapien Medicine Self-Love. Obviously, this is going to help you love yourself more. So if you were around that person, they were talking about how they hate themselves or they were talking about certain emotional issues, once again, it is good to help people, but if you feel like drained afterward and almost feel like you feel how they felt, have you ever noticed that like if you can be in a really good mood and then it almost feels like you help them, now they're feeling positive, but then like they like transferred how they were feeling to you. If that happens and you feel like a slightly lowered sense of self-love, just go use that video as like a booster. It'll raise your self-love and raise your frequency so that you don't get pulled down into how they were feeling. And obviously recommend it to them as well because a main reason for being in a negative mood that most people don't acknowledge is a lack of self-love. That can be a root to depression, a root to a lot of things. A root to anxiety because you feel like you have to get a ton of things done because you need accomplishments to love yourself. There's so many different ways that there's like almost an infinite number of ways that a lack of self-love can have a ripple effect with other emotional issues. Like it's basically a root cause of a lot of other emotional issues. So if you feel like yours was lowered or that the other person needs a boost of self-love, highly recommend that video for that purpose. And then the last one that I'm going to recommend that's also probably a very big one, is Dream Seeds Etheric Cord Cutter. I have a whole video on etheric cord cutting if you want to watch that. But etheric cord cutter will help you to cut, well, first off, what an etheric cord is like, for example, if you're in a relationship with a person in the past, on your energy body, your etheric body, which like you can't necessarily see a cord attached to it, to your heart, but an energy from a memory, the memory of that person. If you broke up with them or it was a bad breakup, this is just an example. Assuming you both, or at least you love that person, on your heart chakra to their heart chakra, there's going to be an energy cord. If you have not cut that cord, even if it's been months since you've seen them, just the thought of them can put you into like a negative state because it brings up the emotion that you feel for them. You haven't you have not cut the cord yet, literally or energetically. So now every time that person is brought up, the emotions are brought up to them too, because you're still literally tied to them emotionally, or you're tied to their body, from their body to your body. There's an energetic cord that sends information, sends emotions, which is why even when like someone you love is like 100 miles away, you can still feel it, sort of, even if you're just on the phone, as you have an energy cord tied to that person because you love them. But it goes for negative people as well. If you're constantly around this person trying to help them and all they're doing is dumping negativity on you, even when you're not around them, just the thought of them invokes the presence of them, because you are still tied to them emotionally. This video is basically specifically for if you aren't necessarily helping somebody, but it's just somebody who is like negative in your past. It'll help you to cut the cord from them, so that, or if someone fucked you over or something like that, like just general negativity, like this person, by thinking about this person, you feel lowered, or you feel in a negative state, or you feel like your emotions, you get angry just by the thought of them or something like that. Those are signs that you have not cut a cord with that person, and forgiven them. So what that video will do is just make it a lot easier to cut those cords with negative influences, so that you don't feel brought down by the past, basically, or by helping somebody that is negative. Therefore, making you feel a lot less burdened and in a higher positive state. So that was pretty much all the ones that I wanted to talk about. So now I'm going to go over a quick summary. In summary, all of those videos will help greatly in reducing the negative feeling that comes from that person's aura, as well as if they are open to using the methods, raising their own personal frequency so that they don't even have to use other people to bring themselves up, or use your like personal therapy or their therapist. It doesn't matter. If they're open to using it, for sure these videos and methods will help to at least take some of the edge off. Obviously, I'm not saying don't go to your therapist or something like that, but you might as well use it alongside it, or completely on its own. It'll help them greatly, possibly completely reverse how they're feeling. So basically they'll be freed from that emotional burden, and possibly become a beacon of light themselves if they use it long enough. Anyone can turn around. You can be in the worst possible state and be consistent with working on yourself or working on your mental health and be a completely different person in a few years. So that person who you were trying to help, who is quote unquote negative or just in a bad spot in their life, it could easily be the switch spots with the other person depending on what happens in a year or something. But what these videos will do is possibly help that person and keep you in that state of being like a lighthouse for other people that need help, or a beacon of light, whatever you want to call it. And this will happen the more that their aura is cleansed from these like past traumas and whatever caused them to feel that way. The more that you shed those old emotions, the more that you are just in a more loving state, and the more that you attract other people, either for help or just as friends, acquaintances, it doesn't matter. You just become a beacon of light in general because you are not as negative as you used to be. Alright guys, that's pretty much all that I wanted to cover today. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit like and go forward being the positive person that we are all meant to be. Peace.